You didn't interrupt. You didn't try to impress. You didn't even move much. But somehow, the energy in the room started shifting toward you. They noticed your stillness. They adjusted their tone. They looked for your reaction. Even when you gave none. That's not charm. That's not strategy. That's passive frame control. The moment you walk in and hold your ground, without fighting for attention, you change how the room organizes itself. Because power doesn't always speak. Sometimes it just sits, breathes, holds still, until the space bends around it. In this video, you'll learn how to win presence, control dynamics, and dominate the invisible game without saying a word. Part 1. What is passive frame control? Passive frame control is not about dominance. It's not about charisma. It's not about status games. It's about one thing: who stays centered when everyone else moves. Frame, the invisible rule of every room. Every room has a frame, who people defer to, who they mirror, who they check before speaking, who shapes the emotional tone. In most spaces, that frame shifts constantly. Whoever speaks loudest, moves fastest, commands attention, pulls the frame. But passive control doesn't pull. It anchors. Passive frame. You don't push, you just hold. You don't interrupt, you don't jump in, you don't chase attention. You simply remain unmoved. Your energy is stable, your body is still, your gaze is calm, your presence is quiet but heavy, and that stillness becomes gravitational. People adjust without knowing why. They slow down around you, soften their tone, rethink their words, glance at you for cues, all without you saying a word. Control without engagement. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to win the interaction. You don't even need to participate fully. Your presence alone sets the terms. And the reason it works? Because in a world addicted to noise, stillness is power. Bottom line, passive frame control isn't about doing more, it's about doing less, but with total conviction. You don't force attention, you make people feel off balance when you're not reacting, and that's when you know you don't just hold the frame, you are the frame. Part 2. Why the most powerful person often says the least. Power doesn't need volume, presence doesn't need noise, and leadership doesn't need to dominate. It needs to be felt, without effort, without performance, without demand. The less you say, the more weight it carries. Words are like currency. The more you spend, the less valuable each word becomes. But when you speak rarely, slowly, intentionally, every sentence lands heavier. People lean in, they listen closer, they assign more meaning because you don't give them excess. Scarcity creates value, even in conversation. The more you react, the less you hold frame. Most people jump to defend, rush to explain, overcompensate when challenged, fill silence with noise. But every reaction is a leak of power, a signal that their internal state depends on the external environment. Power doesn't chase understanding, it creates it by standing still. Stillness equals certainty. In a room full of people seeking validation, the one who needs nothing becomes the center. They don't nod excessively, laugh to fit in, over-contribute, qualify their statements. They speak when they want. They observe more than they engage. They answer slowly. Sometimes they don't answer at all. And that silence, it speaks louder than confidence, because real certainty doesn't prove itself. It doesn't perform. It just is. Presence is not about control. It's about gravity. You don't control the room. You become the thing. Everything else orbits, not by asserting force, but by being the only one who's not trying to be anything. No need to win, no need to please, no need to explain. That's not cold. That's powerful. Tactical insight. When others speak too much, they reveal where they're weak. But when you say little, you force them to reveal themselves. And in that space, you stay sovereign. They stay guessing. Part 3. 5 signals that establish passive control without speaking. Words shape ideas, but energy shapes behavior. And when your presence carries quiet precision, people align to it without asking why. Here's how to signal control, without a single word. 1. Slow, controlled movement. You don't rush, you don't twitch, you don't over-gesture. Everything you do is deliberate. Why it works? It signals internal regulation. It creates psychological weight. It slows down the room around you. You're not just moving slow. You're making everyone else feel fast. And that contrast pulls attention. 2. Still posture with open center. You're not shrinking, you're not bracing, you're not trying to disappear, but you're also not posturing. You simply sit or stand, like you're not afraid to be seen. Spine straight, shoulders down, hands calm, no fidgeting, no performance. This posture doesn't say, "Look at me." It says, "I'm already centered." And people feel that. 3. Selective eye contact with calm detachment. You don't scan the room nervously. You don't dart your eyes. You don't seek approval. You look. And when you do, you hold. Brief, calm, director, and then you look away. Without breaking rhythm. Why it works? It shows self-command. It makes people feel seen, but not owned. It frames you as the one observing, not chasing connection. 4. Control of response timing. You don't answer instantly. You let the question land. You breathe. You pause. Then you speak. Why it works? It breaks expected rhythm. It signals non-reactivity. It forces others to wait for you, subtly shifting the frame. You're not being slow, you're being sovereign. 5. Conscious use of silence. You allow silence. You hold it. You let it stretch, even when it feels too long. Because you understand, power lives in the space between words. You don't fill awkward gaps. You don't soften tension. You let stillness speak. And in that quiet, everyone else adjusts. Strategic reality. You're not trying to take up space. You're letting your space speak for itself. And the less you seek to control, the more control you actually hold. Part 4. When to apply passive frame in group or power settings. You don't dominate the room by force. You do it by becoming the reference point everyone else measures against. And here's where passive frame becomes your quiet weapon. 1. In a meeting, don't fight for the floor. Become the center of gravity. Everyone talks. They interrupt each other. They pitch ideas fast. You don't join the race. You wait. You observe. Then you speak, once, clean, calm, controlled. Why it works? It breaks the emotional tempo. Your voice lands heavier. People turn towards silence more than noise. The person who doesn't scramble for attention ends up commanding it. 2. In group dynamics, control frame through stillness. When the room gets loud, chaotic, status-driven, you don't match the energy, you become the contrast. Minimal motion, zero reaction, calm body language, steady eye contact. Suddenly, people start looking toward you for balance, for calibration. You didn't ask for influence. You became the environment they need to anchor to. 3. In power conflicts, withdraw engagement, hold posture. Someone tests you, questions you, tries to bait a reaction. You don't attack back. You don't defend. You just look, pause, stay in your body. Why it works? You don't give them what they expect. You don't reward their escalation. You force them to feel overexposed. Power doesn't always push back. Sometimes it just refuses to flinch. 4. In relationships, let them adjust to your energy. You don't chase. You don't over-explain. You don't overgive. You stay centered. And when they start pulling away, you don't chase. When they project, you don't absorb. Why it works? It triggers self-regulation in them. It reframes the dynamic without confrontation. It shows you don't manage others' emotions to stay chosen. You are not reactive. You are the frame they must align to. Tactical reality. In every room, someone sets the tone. If it's not you, you're reacting to someone else's nervous system. But when you hold the passive frame, you define tempo, you hold space, you change behavior without trying. That's not leadership, that's gravity. Part 5. How to strengthen your frame without verbal engagement. You don't need to speak to control a situation. You just need to hold yourself when everyone else breaks posture. And here's how you train that stillness until it becomes untouchable. 1. Train your response time. Pause before reacting. Every time someone asks a question, pause 2 to 3 seconds. Someone challenges you, breathe before speaking. Someone pushes emotionally, stay still. This isn't delay, it's command. You're not reacting to their urgency. You're recentering the tempo around yours. 2. Master eye contact without tension. Don't stare. Don't look away too quickly. Don't dart your gaze around. Just look. Calm, neutral, unapologetic. Why it works? Signals presence. Projects internal regulation. Creates subtle pressure without aggression. When you can look without seeking approval, you stop leaking energy. 3. Breathe lower, move slower. People with weak frame breathe from the chest, shallow, fast, anxious. You? Low, grounded, quiet. Breathe through your nose. Exhale slowly. Drop your energy to the floor and move like nothing is urgent. When your breath leads the room, your presence leads too. 4. Don't react to micro-tests. Someone cuts you off, mocks you subtly, tests your opinion, challenges your pace. You don't flinch. You don't defend. You don't prove. You stay centered. Maybe a half smile, maybe just silence. And that silence says more than any clapback ever could. Final calibration. You don't hold frame by controlling the room. You hold it by not needing to control anything. The less you react, the more power you have, and when your nervous system stays still while others shake, you become the silent center of every room. Final CTA. You didn't dominate the room. You didn't demand the spotlight. You didn't speak to be heard. You simply showed up and stayed still. And the room moved around you, because true frame isn't loud, it isn't reactive, it isn't trying. It just holds, quiet, grounded, complete. From now on, don't try to win space. Don't try to manage energy. Just manage your own, and let your stillness do the talking. You don't need to interrupt to gain attention. You don't need to defend to prove value. You don't need to impress to be chosen. You are the gravity in the room, not the noise inside it. And that's the difference between presence and performance.